TIMTAMS, the better version of penguins. And today we're making them gluten-free. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I felt like we hadn't done a cooking video in a while, so here we are today making gluten-free TIMTAMS. I'm sure most of you know what a Tim Tam is, but if you've not heard of one before, it is a chocolate biscuit layer with some sort of icing in between, another chocolate biscuit layer, full thing dunked in chocolate. And of course at the end of this video we will be testing to see if we can Tim Tam slam it. And if you haven't heard of that, you've been missing out, but I'm glad that I'm able to show you today. A Tim Tam slam is when you bite off the opposite corners of a Tim Tam, drink a hot drink through them like a straw, slam the whole Tim Tam into your mouth, and it should be a delicious chocolatey gooey mess. For today's recipe there shouldn't be anything too out of the ordinary that you'll need to find in the supermarkets. It is just like a classic biscuit chocolate cookie recipe. We've got our gluten-free flour, butter, sugar, loads of chocolate, and in terms of equipment we only need a hand beater. So, are you ready to go? I'm ready to go. First up, we're going to preheat our oven to 180 degrees Celsius on bake, or this much in Fahrenheit. We're going to start with these biscuits like we do for most biscuits by creaming the butter and sugar together. I've got 125 grams of softened butter and 95 grams of caster sugar. After that's beaten up, we're going to add in the egg and beat again. Now we're going to go ahead and add the dry ingredients. So that's 220 grams of gluten-free flour, 30 grams of cocoa powder, half a teaspoon of baking powder, quarter of a teaspoon of xanthan gum, but you don't need it if your flour mixture already contains it, and a pinch of salt. Now we've just got to combine this mixture until we can form a nice dough. Now at this stage, depending on how warm it is in your kitchen, your dough might be a little bit sticky, in which case you can just wrap it up in some Glad wrap or cling film and pop it in the fridge for half an hour. Or if you're finding that it is okay to handle, we're just going to go ahead and roll it out onto a floured surface. We're going to roll out the dough until it's about ½ centimeter thick, and then we're going to cut it into shapes. Now you can either use a cookie cutter. I've got this one that is the shape for bourbon biscuits, like this, and this is a very accurate size to a Tim Tam. But before I had this, I used to just cut it out with a ruler and a knife. The biscuits themselves just need to be 3 by 6 centimeters, so if you've got a ruler, you can just measure it out and cut them like so. Next, all we've got to do is line a baking tray with baking paper and gently place our little Tim Tams onto the baking paper. You don't need to leave too much room in between them because they don't spread that much, so a couple of centimeters should be fine. Alright, you can see that I just sort of tidied them up a little bit because it is quite a sticky dough to be working with, so I just went around with a knife and made them a little bit straighter around the edges. These are going to go in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes or until they're nicely browned, and then we'll carry on from there. Bye! Ooh. These are looking pretty ready, so I'm just going to pop in the second batch. Batch 2's done as well. Now we just gotta wait for the cookies to cool. Look at all of our beautiful little Tim Tam bickies. By themselves they're rather plain biscuits, but they kind of need to be. You don't want them to be overly sweet because the rest of the biscuit is quite sweet. So now these are cooled, we're gonna move on to the icing and the dunking in the chocolate. So don't worry if your biscuits are looking a little bumpy, if they're not too even. All manner of sins can be covered in chocolate. That sounds like something Nigella would say. All manner of sins can be covered in chocolate. So I've got 50 grams of softened butter, 150 grams of icing sugar, and a tablespoon of cocoa powder, and we're just going to beat that until it comes together. It needs to be quite a thick icing because we need to be able to roll it with our hands before we put it on the biscuits. However, if it's looking way too dry to even combine, just a little splish splash of water should do the trick. After that, we're going to take a little bit of the icing, press it onto the bottom side of one biscuit, sandwich another biscuit on top, and pop it to the side, ready for dunking in chocolate. here are our lovely Tim Tam sandwiches. Now all that's left is to dunk them in melted chocolate. To do that, I'm going to heat up half of the chocolate in a glass bowl over a pot of boiling water. Stir that until it melts. Then we're going to take it off the heat, add in the other half of the chocolate and stir that in until that's all melted as well. This is sort of like a cheats way of doing sort of a faux tempering. It doesn't quite have the same result, but close enough without having to actually temper chocolate. It just means that we'll have to store the Tim Tams either in a fridge or a cool space in your house. We're finally here. All that's left to do is the dunking. I've just prepared a chopping board with a little bit of baking paper on it just to put the Tim Tams onto so that they can sit in the fridge. But otherwise, all we've got to do now is just dunk. Now that they're all covered in chocolate, all we need to do is pop them in the fridge and wait for them to set. I think they're ready. Usually I'd give them a little bit of a tidy up around the edges, but I'm just far too excited. So let me grab my cup of tea. I'm magic. And let's try a Tim Tam slam. So this is what it looks like. Pretty Tim Tam like, I'd say so myself. You bite off the opposite corners. One there. Making sure you reach into the icing part of the middle. So it's like this. Put it in your hot drink and suck on it like a straw until you get the hot drink through it. And then you slam it. Oh. Exactly what I've been waiting for all day. Delightful. Let me open up this one so you can see what it looks like on the inside. So here you go, here's a cross section of the Tim Tam. You can see like that. The biscuit, icing, biscuit. Quite simply one of the best biscuits you can have with a cup of tea. That brings us to the end of the video today. If you want the recipe, you can of course, like always, find it in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you'd like me to make next and hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.